All right. The recording is on. All right, I'll get started. Welcome, everybody. This is the bi-weekly Cloud Custodian meeting. It's our kind of high bandwidth discussion meeting where we hop on here every 2 weeks and try to walk and discuss through issues. Before we get started, as usual, we're under the CNCF's Code of Conduct, so please be excellent to each other. And a reminder, we do record these meetings and publish them on YouTube so the public can follow along if they want, so be cognizant of that. And with that, I put the URL to the notes in chat. I'll go ahead and put them again for those of you that joined after. First bit, intros. Anyone want to introduce themselves? Say hello if it's your first time or you haven't been in a while. I'm George. I'll be your host for this today. All right, everyone's quiet today, no problem. A few things before we get started here. We've been moving to Slack over the course of the past year. I always publish those notes there because there's like an inviter page that you need to go to. So if you're not yet on the Slack, feel free to click through onto there. And another reminder, you'll see this in the notes for probably the rest of the calendar year. At some point, we are going to be moving on from Python 3.7. So we're just going to stick that warning on top of every meeting notes that we have to give people a heads up as they can. First off, the topic, Kapil added this about adding more maintainers, and I think I just saw him join, if he's that phone number.
Hello.
Is that you, Kapil?
It is.
Ah, okay. All right. I moved you up slot. I know you're time sensitive today, so.
So yeah, we've got a few folks that I think would like to ask to be maintainers. Pratush and Kent SW. They've both had the general marker we try to use is enduring contribution. So not like we have a lot of drive-by feature ads for things, but measuring that time over months and years. Then we get to people that have done that, and we'd like to have them to be maintainers on the Custodian project.
Yep, absolutely. I think I talked with George on Slack about it, and it would be an absolute honor to be able to contribute more on the project, and happy to kind of help wherever I am with regards to reviewing PRs and stuff.
Awesome, and thank you. It's long overdue. We've I think you've contributed for many years, and happy to get to this milestone. And I don't know if Tim's here, but he's also made a number of contributions over the last, I believe, 2 years, which have been significant. And then I'll hand it back to George. Cheers.
All right. How do you do that little celebration thing? Who did that? That looked amazing. Applies your effects.
Yeah, there's a send a reaction option.
Oh, nice. Okay. All right. All right, and we'll try to get a hold of. I still have to try to find a way to get a hold of Ken, and we'll talk on that. Darren, you have any comments? Anything to say?
No. It's good to have more maintenance.
Yay! All right. And I'll leave a note here.
But incidentally, if there are other people that folks feel like should be or would like to consider nominate for being maintainers, please just drop a note into development Slack and we can discuss there.
Yeah, and as you'll see throughout the meeting, there's plenty of opportunities for people to pick up reviews and things like that. And I'll put this in here, as always, the golden rule: don't merge your own stuff. All right, moving on. This next one's also yours, Kapil, renaming the master branch to main. I know we've been wanting to do this all of last calendar year, but it looks like we are finally doing this.
And just to comment on the don't merge your own subdomain, it's totally fine to merge your own PR domain after they've been approved, but like just to, I think it's more in the context of making sure that things get some notion of community input.
Unreviewed.
And then with regards to the master domain, this is just something that's been on our backlog for a while. GitHub has made this process really easy now, and doesn't break anybody's workflow. It'll ask you, like, effectively, there's enough permanent redirects and all the PRs get retargeted. So effectively, the no op for us. There shouldn't be any disruption to workflow for people. The only delta is I think it will flash a page for people with commit access to update their branch refs. But that is a not a it's a good thing to do, but not a hard requirement. It won't break anything. And just trying to get all that done. And currently aiming for, I believe, next Wednesday for actually doing this. I just wanted to surface it here in case there were any questions or comments about it.
Yep, and that's January 31st. I'll put that in the notes. All right, anyone have questions on this one? Moving on, we had a release since the last meeting, 0.9.22. Sonny, you want to take us through the TLDR here?
Yeah, this was a relatively smaller release compared to the last few big ones, but there's still some good stuff in here, some bug fixes and whatnot. So definitely check it out. I think there potentially may be some issues in the Azure provider that is still being investigated right now. So I think specifically if you're using the container host mode, but again, still not completely clear on what the issues are right now. So yeah, go check it out.
All right. Those just keep coming on in. All right. And that's it for the formal agenda before we move to the pull request and bug issue section of the meeting. Does anybody have anything on fire or?
I don't have anything on fire, but I did just want to mention that I've been doing a bit of work around sort of preventative shift left type of security or policy enforcement that extends to both T7N left, which has a much nicer developer UX, CLI UX now. If folks want to check that out, that is it is pretty awesome. I think we still have some things to do, but you can now get like research coverage, like we'd have the summary output at the end with resource coverage or policy coverage across resources, and then there's also some work like looking at shift left as an entire ecosystem of things. There's now a PR up for adding in cloud AWS config prevention capabilities. Sorry, they don't call it prevention. They call it proactive. Just wanted to explore what that was and implement support for it in custodian policies. It is a little bit limited, I found, as far as only having 11 resources. I think it does re-highlight the need to also also look at other capabilities in the space. So going to try to resurrect the AWS cloud control providers capabilities around integrating in with CloudFormation hooks so that you can do preventative mode policies against CloudFormation. Yeah, this general theme for me at the moment on that topic, and those are 3 different efforts and initiatives around it, 2 of which are already done and 1 of which will be starting shortly.
All right, and that was 8190, and this proactive one is 8193 if you want to check it out. Does that cover any other shift left ones in here? You just have those two, I think. Let's see what we got here.
Some are already merged, but yeah. That's it.
Do you want to talk about 8190 real quick? That's the one with the CLI summary.
It's one of those things that is a lot easier to demo than to talk about. I'm hopeful to record like a quick demo video for it, and I'll drop a link in the general Slack link that's available.
Cool. And if you want to check out that PR, that's 8180. That's already been merged. So, all right, let's take a look. If this is your first time here or unfamiliar with this, what we do is we have a script that checks our GitHub activity between the last time that we had a meeting, and if there's something that you feel is interesting or you want extra eyeballs on, or something that needs further discussion, you can kind of bring it to the meeting. So that's kind of the end of the other agenda. If nobody else has anything on fire or anything that they need help with, we'll go ahead and move on to that. Any questions before we move on to PRs and issues? All right. Well, everything must be working perfectly then. 8182. Who's Sunny? Is this yours? This mailer fixed module not found for Azure?
Yeah, this was like one of the issues I had mentioned around Azure and Mailer. This should resolve it. Basically we'll find out in the next release. Hopefully everybody's Mailer is working as expected. It was just some lazy loading of providers and stuff like that we changed to make it so you didn't have to install everything under the sun if you just wanted to run like a Azure Mailer or GCP or AWS.
Got you. Any other comments on this from everyone?
No, I mean this is cool. I would also I have a PR up for something in a similar vein where I could not install the Tencent provider on M1 due to some crypto thing, and there's a PR up for that as well, just for doing standard custodian development. But the Mailer thing, I think, is already merged, and all that looked good as far as not requiring Photo for deploying in Azure.
Actually, yeah, on the not the lazy loading, but the skipping of unimportable resources, does it log that out to say like these are unavailable? I guess it's still in the PR right now, right?
Yeah, I feel like it's line noise, unless because if you're actually using it, it will fail. But if you're not using it, we try to import it, and why do you care per se if you're not using it? That's kind of my thought on that.
Yeah, I was wondering. So I guess from a policy authoring standpoint, it would be good to know. Although, yeah, if it comes up every single time you write a custodian run command, that would
effectively this is an M1 Mac workflow thing. If I don't care about Tencent, why are you logging it for me? So to speak?
Yeah, that's true.
If I am using the policy, it's going to fail. So, or sorry, if you are using that resource type, it will fail.
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right, this one's yours too, Sunny. Add AWS backups filter, consecutive AWS backups filter to more resource types. Which ones?
Go
up in here?
Yeah, so this turns the consecutive AWS backups filter and basically takes the bulk of it and creates a base class, which is just a backups filter. So instead of checking for specifically the consecutive backups, if you just wanted to see are there any backups at all, or other potentially other attributes, you could do it with this. This was to address the 8119.
Okay.
Which Jameson opened. So Jameson, if you want to take a look at the PR there, if that addresses the issue, then we can move forward. I think there's probably some CI issues with that right now, but yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'll explore that and see if that will complete the PR.
Cool, cool.
Sorry to interrupt. It's hard to follow the flow with on phone, but if Darren's around, like was also while I was playing around with config rules, I did look at a capability that may have been related to a previous PR, and that's effectively right now for config rules, we effectively mark a resource as either compliant or non-compliant. I think there's a separate notion on also marking a given custodian policy as not applicable for a set of resources. I think it specifically came up around an RDS where, a policy may have been just checking for, MySQL engines, a particular RDS subset of the total resource type against a policy and didn't want to mark the things that were Postgres for being compliant to MySQL policy. So looking at effectively adding in a block of filters to the mode, specifically around config rules, such that we can mark a set of resources based on individual attributes of those resources. And I'm just curious if that makes sense and would be interesting to folks.
So this is in lieu of doing it with what we have done with the PR, which is using it's a server-side filter. You're saying now we can apply the filter at the mode level instead. Is that what you're saying?
Like being able to specify this at the policy level to basically say, hey, say some things may not be supported by server-side filtering for particular resources, but being able to say, hey, there's this subset of resources which we don't care about because they're not applicable for this config rule based on some innate attributes of them. Like if you're doing a backup policy for EC2 or EBS volumes, then you run into a backup policy for S3. It's clearly not relevant to mark that as compliant or not compliant versus not applicable.
Yeah, I think that can help makes it a little bit clearer. Yeah.
And the intent, I think, would be to initially apply this to regular config rules. Not 100% certain about the
config
we could add it to config. We could add to config poll rule. I think that would be a secondary follow-up PR on this topic. But the intent is to be able to do the three-value logic that the underlying service supports here, and be able to express that cleanly in policy.
All right.
Cool. Thank you.
Kapil, can you see the video on your phone?
Negative.
Okay.
I'm on mobile, cellular.
Oh, okay, yeah. So Darren was doing a lot of nodding. I just was making sure how much of that was coming across. All right. Anything else on that one? Or any questions from anyone else?
On a different related topic, I would also say that we're finally adding an org account to our resources with the notion of trying to expand this out to all the various functionality of AWS organizations with regards to delegate administrator, various setups. This will, as a resource, this will also probably need to be not. This will not be runnable, I think, with C7.org by default, just because it will have its own ability to do parallels, but it can't be expressed cleanly. The credential dance between accounts is going to conflict with C7.org. But just awareness that that's also coming.
Do we need to catch an attempt to run it through C7.org, like with a validation or something, or is that already in there?
It is not in there. That is an intent before it goes in. I was thinking just having C7.org inject an environment variable and use that for the validation itself.
Okay, cool.
All right, next up, we're adding resources for time stream. This is closing a bug that. Both of you worked on this. Okay.
Yeah, Pratush dropped a review that I needed to address. After that, it should be good to go. It was just switching out for the resource group tagging API, which I didn't realize was supporting time stream yet. So it was just like one small change, and then it'll be good to go.
Yep, they haven't mentioned it in the docs, so it wasn't very clear.
Is this a new service? I haven't heard of this one.
It's not new, probably a few years old. It's
Okay.
basically just a dedicated, time-based database.
I've been able to not remember all of them in my head. All right, those are PRs. Let's look through some of these issues here. The time stream one we covered. RDS policy post finding is not working as expected.
Yeah, this one was interesting. So Security Hub actually supports a whole bunch of resource types that we also support, but in a not in a native way necessarily. So with Security Hub, if you post a finding, you can, if you post it in the resource type that is explicitly supported, you have to do some stuff around ensuring that certain keys are in the shape that or in the payload when you pass it through. For all other resource types that we don't do this for, we basically stick it in as a other resource type. And in this case, the issue was because there were too many top level attributes on the resource metadata. I think there were 55. There's a limit of 50 keys on there. So there's a PR to address this by basically switching it over to the native resource type.
I see.
But I think there's some follow-up items on doing some validation on the shape and stuff like that. So that one's not 100% ready to go in, but it's I think just pending a few tweaks.
All right.
Yeah, definitely curious if there's folks that are using Security Hub with Cloud Custodian, I think the challenge with Security Hub has always been that it has its own bespoke format for all the resources, and it requires encoding and manual translation effectively. So if there are users out there, definitely please make yourself known so we can try to get feedback on that integration.
And the last one I think we have for today, Azure error upgrade in a .9.22. You had alluded to this one before, Sunny.
Yeah, this one is still basically under investigation right now.
Okay.
I don't really have anything to add. I guess, are there any Azure users here? And then any Azure users that specifically use this container host mode? I guess not. Because most people don't really.
Hey, might be worthwhile reaching out to Tamar to see if he can come out to the next community meeting to discuss in more detail. If you want to just drop a comment in the PR with a link to the calendar.
I can do that. That was the last issue. Any other PRs or issues or anything that anyone like to discuss?
Yes. Like to say from Slack, we've been having a lot of good Slack discussions, and some of those are leading into doc updates. And so I just think like one of those keep it in your mind sort of thing. If you're using Custodian, some of the docs are looking unclear, or there's a Slack discussion that suggests that docs could help. And we're trying to be on this, but you mentioned before, George, there are a lot of ways to contribute. And
Yeah,
you know, if docs make sense to one of us and to you as you're writing something, then that's a great place to get a PR in.
yeah.
Actually, yeah, on the topic of docs, there was actually a really great PR that just went in this morning on S3 bucket deletion. So basically triggering off of the delete bucket event and adding a lifecycle policy to do the emptying of that bucket. So you know, with an S3 bucket, it has to be empty before you can actually delete it, and this basically takes advantage of the fact that the delete bucket API call will fail, so the bucket will still exist, and then it attaches the lifecycle policy so you can go in and clean it up after the fact.
Oh, and here's the page. Nice.
It's interesting. I feel like we have I feel like we default to ignoring failed API calls.
Yeah,
we may have a mode for an option for it.
Yeah, that's line 30. I completely can't see it, but line 30 on that doc there, C7 skip error event. So that's how we are able to capture that. And
no, that sounds super useful. I
Yeah.
definitely use that.
All right, good to know. Thanks, AJ, for reminding me for all the documentation stuff I signed up for that I haven't gotten to yet.
Speaking of documentation, this is more like release engineering crap, but like it's been on this drive to try to reduce our repo size, and it feels like it takes too long to check out. We're gonna start moving the docs out of Git. Those docs are currently out of GH pages. We're gonna start moving those out of there, and it should be, transparent and seamless, and like the doc build process stays the same. It's really just a question of tuning how we do delivery of those docs, but hopefully that will also shrink the repo size, and it's currently like almost 400 bags, and I think if we can get rid of the docs, it'll shrink down to around 100. But that is work hopefully in the next month or so.
All right, and that's the end. Anybody have anything else to add or say hello? Going once, going twice, 3 times. All right, the video will be on YouTube, and check the usual places for the final notes. Thanks, everybody. Have 25 minutes back, and we'll see you all in 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Thank you.